I never thought my own daughter could betray me like this. She decided I was too old to live alone, and suddenly my home, my money, and my life were not mine anymore. She called lawyers behind my back, froze my accounts, and tried to take control of everything I had worked for decades to build. I felt helpless, heartbroken, and angry all at once, watching the child I raised turn into someone who believed manipulation was love. I tried to speak, to reason, to remind her that respect and autonomy are the true signs of love. But she didn't listen. She came into my home uninvited, threatened me, and pushed me to the edge. Every day was a battle between fear, anger, and the desire to stand up for myself. And yet, somehow, against all odds, I fought back. I took my truth to court, showed the evidence, and slowly, the lies and control began to crumble. Justice was not quick, but it came, and when it did, I realized something important. Standing up for yourself, even against the ones you love most, is the only way to protect your dignity, your freedom, and your life. This is my story of betrayal, fight, and ultimate justice, and I promise you, it's harder and more emotional than anything you could imagine. I still can't believe this happened. I never thought my own daughter would try to take everything from me, just because she decided I was too old to live on my own. It all started when I turned 68, and suddenly, I was no longer her independent dad, but some kind of burden she had to manage. I'm Robert. I've been a single father since my wife passed away 10 years ago. My daughter, Emily, is 35 now, and she's always been ambitious, sharp, and, well, stubborn. She's done really well for herself, makes more money than I'll ever see, owns a beautiful house in the suburbs, drives a fancy car, but she's also controlling. And I learned that the hard way. Everything changed last winter. I had a small fall at home. Nothing major, just a bruise on my hip, but Emily overreacted. She stormed into my apartment unannounced, pacing around, shaking her head. "Dad, you can't live alone anymore. This is dangerous." "I'm serious," she said. I told her I was fine, that I just needed a little rest, but she didn't listen. She started calling my friends, neighbors, even my doctor, insisting I needed a full-time caretaker. I felt trapped. Then came the emails and texts. "You're not safe, Dad. I'm worried about you. You need to move in with me." Every day, multiple messages like I was some child who couldn't make decisions for himself. I tried to talk to her calmly. "Emily, I'm 68, yes, but I'm not helpless. I've lived alone for decades. I don't need this." But she just sighed and said, "You don't understand. It's too late to be stubborn. I'm helping you whether you like it or not." I couldn't believe what was happening. This wasn't help. This was control. And so it got worse. I came home one evening to find a letter slipped under my door. My bank had called Emily, and somehow she convinced them to freeze some of my accounts for my safety. My own money, my own home, she was taking it away. That's when I realized this wasn't about safety. This was about power. She wanted to decide everything for me, even what I could do with my own life. The neighbors started noticing. They'd come by, ask if I was okay. I had to lie, smile, say everything's fine. Inside, I felt my world crumbling. And yet, somewhere deep down, I knew I couldn't just give in. I had to fight, but I had no idea how Emily would react when I finally stood up. And that's when the real drama started. I knew I had to do something, but I didn't want to make things worse. I tried reasoning with Emily again. I called her one Sunday afternoon, my voice calm but firm. "Emily, we need to talk. I'm not moving in with you. I can handle myself." There was a long pause on the other end. Then she snapped, "Dad, you don't get it. You're being reckless. I'm trying to protect you. If you refuse, I'll have to take stronger measures." My heart sank. "Stronger measures?" I asked cautiously. "What do you mean?" She didn't answer right away. Then finally, she said, "I've already spoken to a lawyer. If you don't agree, I can petition the court to have a conservator appointed. That means I could control your finances legally, Dad. You know I wouldn't do this lightly, but you're leaving me no choice." I felt a cold wave of panic. I'd always trusted Emily, confided in her, thought she loved me. But hearing her say she might take legal control of my life, it felt like a betrayal. I sat down on my couch, staring at the ceiling, wondering how it had come to this. The next few weeks were a nightmare. Emily called constantly, sent lawyers letters, and even arranged for a home safety evaluation without telling me. When the evaluator came, she was polite, but she asked questions that made me feel like a child. Do you have trouble managing money? Are you able to cook or clean? I answered honestly. I can manage everything on my own. But Emily had coached the evaluator, and by the time the report came back, it painted me as at risk and needing supervision. I was furious. I remember the first argument we had in person after that. Emily showed up at my door one Saturday morning, armed with printed copies of the report. "Dad, we need to move forward," she said, her tone cold, businesslike. I slammed the door gently, not wanting to strike her, but loud enough to let her know I wasn't giving in. She knocked again. "Dad, don't make this harder than it has to be." I opened the door, my hands shaking with anger. "Emily, listen to me. This isn't about safety. This is about control. I'm not a child. I am your father. You have no right to take away my life just because you think you know what's best." She looked at me, her eyes flashing. "Dad, I am trying to protect you. If anything happened to you, I'd never forgive myself. You think this is about control? It's about love. You're being selfish." "Selfish," I shouted. "You're the one freezing my accounts, calling lawyers, trying to decide where I sleep and what I eat. That's selfish. You're treating me like I'm nothing but a problem to be solved." She didn't respond, just stared, and that silence was worse than any argument. I knew I couldn't handle this alone, so I reached out to an old friend, Henry, someone I trusted with my life. I explained everything, and he was horrified. "Robert, she's gone too far. You need to get legal advice. You need to fight back before she makes this permanent." That's when I realized the only way to save my independence was to take action. I started gathering evidence. Emails, texts, letters from the bank, even recordings of her threatening calls. Every piece of proof showed that Emily wasn't helping. She was trying to control me. The next confrontation was worse than anything I imagined. Emily came over again, confident, smug, even. "Dad, I'm tired of arguing. Let's just sign the papers. It'll be easier for everyone." I looked her in the eyes, the same eyes that used to be full of warmth when she was little. "No, Emily, I won't sign anything. I'm taking this to a lawyer. If you think you can bully me into giving up my life, you're wrong." She laughed, a cold, bitter sound that cut through me. "You think a lawyer will stop me? You think you can win against your own daughter?" I swallowed my fear and said, "I don't care if I win or lose. I care about keeping my dignity. I'm not going to live in fear of you. Not now, not ever." After that, she stormed out, slamming the door so hard the frame shook. I sat on my couch, heart racing, tears in my eyes, but also a strange sense of relief. I had finally spoken my truth. I wasn't going to be silenced, but the battle wasn't over. Over the next few weeks, she tried every tactic she could think of. Calls in the middle of the night, friends trying to convince me to come to my senses, even showing up at my apartment with a social worker. Each time I stood firm. I answered calmly, politely but firmly, "I am fine. I can manage my life. Please leave me alone." And then came the tipping point. Emily tried to make me look incapable in front of my neighbors. She invited a group of them over to check on me while I was at home, thinking they would support her narrative. I was furious, but knew I had to stay calm. I let them in, greeted them warmly, and calmly showed them my apartment, my organized finances, and how well I could manage my daily life. By the end of the visit, everyone was on my side, confused and upset at Emily's manipulations. That's when I realized something important. I wasn't alone. People could see the truth. I just had to hold my ground. Little did I know, Emily wasn't done. She had one more shocking move planned. I thought I had seen the worst of Emily, but I was wrong. One Monday morning, I woke up to find a certified letter on my doorstep. My hands trembled as I opened it. It was a petition for conservatorship. She had gone behind my back and filed it with the court. I couldn't believe it. My own daughter, trying to take legal control over my life. I felt a mix of betrayal, anger, and heartbreak. I immediately called my lawyer, a kind man named Mr. Thompson, who had helped me in small legal matters before. "Robert, you need to fight this aggressively," he said. "This isn't just about safety. She's trying to control you. You have every right to defend your independence." I nodded, my heart pounding. I had no choice. I had to fight back. The court date came faster than I expected. Emily arrived looking confident, wearing a sharp blazer, her hair perfectly done. She smiled at me, a smile I remembered from my childhood, and it made my stomach twist. She waved at me as if we were in some polite dinner, not about to battle over my very life. The hearing began. The judge, an older woman with a calm demeanor, asked Emily to explain why she believed a conservatorship was necessary. Emily spoke eloquently, almost too eloquently. "Your Honor, my father has had a fall. He lives alone. He struggles with daily tasks. I'm only trying to protect him from harm. I love him, and I don't want to see him injured or worse." I clenched my fists under the table. Her words sounded like truth, but I knew they weren't. I had managed my life just fine for decades. I wasn't helpless. I took a deep breath and stood up. "Your Honor," I said, my voice steady despite the shaking in my chest, "I have lived independently for almost 70 years. Yes, I had a minor fall, but I am fully capable of managing my own life. My daughter is trying to control me, not help me. She has even frozen my accounts without my consent. This is not protection. This is power. I do not consent to a conservatorship, and I will fight to keep my independence." There was a silence in the room. Emily's confident expression faltered slightly. She whispered something under her breath, but I couldn't hear. The judge looked at me, then at her, and asked, "Do you have evidence to support your claims?" I handed over the folder I'd spent weeks preparing: bank letters, texts, emails, recordings of her calls. Every piece showed manipulation, coercion, and attempts to control my life without my consent. Emily tried to argue. "Those are exaggerated. I only wanted to help." But the judge frowned. She asked her, "Were these actions discussed with your father beforehand?" Emily stammered, "Well, I thought it was necessary." The room felt heavy. I could see the shift happening. People who had believed Emily's story were now questioning her motives. I felt a surge of relief mixed with sadness. This was my daughter, the little girl I used to read bedtime stories to, standing before court, lying about her intentions. Then came a most shocking moment. Emily's lawyer, looking uneasy, whispered something to her. She glanced at me, eyes wide, and suddenly her confident mask cracked. She tried to interrupt me, but the judge raised a hand. "Silence. Let the father speak." I continued, calmer now, more certain. "I am not fragile. I'm not incapable. My daughter has taken actions behind my back that have threatened my independence. This is not love. Love respects autonomy. Love does not manipulate, coerce, or threaten legal action against someone you claim to care for. I am asking the court to deny this petition and allow me to continue living my life as I see fit." The judge nodded, making notes. "I will review all the evidence and testimony. We will reconvene in 2 weeks with a decision." I walked out of the courthouse feeling a mix of exhaustion and hope. I had spoken my truth, but Emily wasn't done. The next day, she called my neighbors, tried to convince them I was unfit to live alone. I had to confront them personally, one by one, showing them my daily routines, my independence. Slowly, their support shifted fully to me. They could see I was capable. Then, one evening, Emily showed up at my door unexpectedly, tears in her eyes. "Dad, I just want you safe. Can't we work this out?" she pleaded. I could see the manipulation, but also a flicker of the little girl I once knew. My heart ached. "Emily, safety isn't about control. It's about respect. If you truly cared, you would respect my choices. Right now, you are hurting me more than helping." She left that night, slamming the door again. I knew this was far from over, but I also knew I'd taken the hardest step, standing up for myself. For the first time in weeks, I slept without that gnawing fear in my chest. 2 weeks later, the court reconvened. Emily walked in, tried to appear composed. The judge reviewed the evidence, listened to my testimony again, and finally, with a solemn expression, said, "Based on the evidence, the petition for conservatorship is denied. Robert maintains full control of his life and finances." The court advises the family to seek counseling to address underlying conflicts. I couldn't believe it. Relief washed over me, a wave so strong I had to sit down. Emily's face was pale, and I could see the frustration and shame etched there. I didn't gloat. I didn't yell. I simply felt free. But the best part? The neighbors, my friends, even distant relatives came by to congratulate me. "You did the right thing," they said. "You stood up for yourself." And for the first time, I felt truly respected again. I realized something that day. Independence isn't just about doing things on your own. It's about being seen, being trusted, being allowed to make your own choices, even if others disagree. And sometimes, standing up for yourself is the only way to make people respect that. Little did I know, Emily had one more attempt left, an attempt that would finally test our family in ways neither of us expected. I thought the court decision would end the nightmare. I really did. For a day, maybe two, I felt a strange peace. But Emily wasn't done. A week after the court ruling, she showed up at my apartment with an air of determination I had never seen before. She wasn't angry this time. No, this was colder, calculated. She had a folder under her arm, and I knew immediately that whatever was inside wasn't friendly. "Dad," she said, voice soft but sharp, "we need to talk. I've been thinking, maybe you're right about some things, but there are still issues you're not seeing. I want to help you, truly. I need you to trust me." I studied her face. There was a flicker of the little girl I once knew, but behind it, something else, a relentless drive to win. "Emily," I said slowly, "I've already told you. I appreciate your concern, but I don't need control. I don't need you to decide my life. I am capable. If you keep pushing, you're only hurting me and yourself." She smiled faintly, almost sadly, and said, "I just want what's best for you. Let's start fresh. Let's find a compromise." I didn't trust her. Something inside me screamed that she was planning another move, but I stayed calm. Compromise means respecting my choices, not freezing my accounts, not threatening legal action. That's the compromise I need. For a week, she acted different, less confrontational, almost gentle. But then came the subtle manipulation, the calls at odd hours, the casual remarks about my falling behind or not managing things properly. I felt my patience being tested. And then, the worst happened. One night, I returned home to find my apartment door slightly ajar. My heart skipped a beat. I pushed it open slowly and froze. The place was a mess. Papers scattered everywhere. My computer was open, and on the table, a note in Emily's handwriting. "I'm just trying to protect you. Don't make me do what I have to." I couldn't believe it. She had broken in. My anger surged, but I forced myself to stay calm. I called the police, explaining everything. They arrived quickly, taking statements and evidence. Emily had gone too far. Now, this wasn't about independence or love. It was trespassing, intimidation, harassment. The next morning, Emily showed up at my door again, as if nothing had happened. She rang the bell insistently. I opened the door, hands trembling, heart racing. "Emily, what are you doing?" I demanded. I wanted to see you," she said, voice soft, but her eyes cold. "I don't want to fight anymore. Can't we just talk?" "Talk," I shouted, my voice cracking. "You broke into my home. You threatened me. This isn't about talking anymore. You're crossing lines that can't be ignored." She didn't reply immediately. Then she said quietly, almost whispering, I love you. I can't let you get hurt." I felt my chest tighten. Love? Was this love? Or was this just another way to control me? I looked her in the eyes and said, "Emily, love respects boundaries. Love doesn't threaten. It doesn't manipulate. If you truly love me, you will leave me alone." Her face twisted with emotion. She stepped back, shook her head, and whispered, I can't." Then she turned and walked away, slamming the door behind her. I felt a mix of relief and exhaustion. The battle had escalated to dangerous territory. I realized then that standing up for myself wasn't enough. I needed protection, support, and legal enforcement. I called my lawyer immediately. Mr. Thompson advised filing a restraining order and documenting every incident. We began the process, carefully collecting evidence. In the following days, Emily tried to contact neighbors, friends, even distant relatives, painting herself as the concerned daughter. But this time, The truth was too clear. Everyone saw the pattern. Manipulation, control, threats. My neighbors, who had once been unsure, now came forward, affirming that I was capable, independent, and mistreated by Emily's actions. The tension reached its peak when she confronted me in person one last time. It was early morning. I was on the porch, drinking coffee, when I saw her car pull up. She got out slowly, holding the same folder she had brought weeks ago. I felt a mix of dread and resolve. "Dad," she said, voice almost pleading, "please let me help you. I don't want to fight anymore." Her voice broke. I stood tall, despite the fear and exhaustion gnawing at me. "Emily, this ends now. I will not be controlled. I will not be threatened. You've had every chance to act with respect and love. But you chose manipulation and trespass. You have crossed a line that cannot be ignored." Her eyes filled with tears, and I saw a flicker of the little girl she once was, the girl I used to comfort, the girl I once held in my arms. But the adult standing before me was someone I no longer recognized. I just wanted to protect you," she whispered. "And I am capable of protecting myself," I replied firmly. "Love doesn't demand control. Respect does. Leave now, Emily, before this becomes something neither of us can undo." She hesitated, then turned slowly, walked back to her car, and drove away. I watched her go, feeling a mix of sorrow, relief, and exhaustion. That night, I finally slept without fear. I realized something vital. The fight for independence isn't just about managing daily life. It's about standing firm, setting boundaries, and protecting your dignity, even when the people you love most try to take it away. And in that moment, I felt a strange kind of triumph. Not over Emily, but over fear itself. I had reclaimed my life, my independence, my voice. And for the first time in weeks, I knew I would never let anyone, no matter how close, take that from me again. But the final chapter wasn't over yet. The days after Emily left were strangely quiet. At first, I felt relief, but soon the silence turned into an uneasy tension. Every creak of the floorboards, every knock on the door made me flinch. I had fought for my independence, yes, but the fear that Emily might return, that she might try again, lingered in my mind. I spent hours reflecting on everything: the falls, the calls, the frozen accounts, the court battles, and the final confrontation. It was exhausting, emotionally draining, and heartbreaking. I realized that this wasn't just about me. It was about the bond between a parent and child. Emily loved me, yes, but she didn't understand what love truly meant. She didn't realize that love doesn't control, manipulate, or take away someone else's dignity. I decided to take action, not against her, but for myself. I called a counselor, someone to help me process the trauma. Each session helped me see things more clearly. I wasn't just fighting Emily. I was reclaiming my right to live freely, with respect and dignity. One afternoon, a week after Emily's last visit, the doorbell rang. I froze. Hesitantly, I opened the door. It was Emily. She looked smaller somehow, humbled, fragile. Her eyes were red, her shoulders slumped. "Dad," she said softly, almost whispering, "can we talk?" I studied her, my heart still wary. But there was something genuine in her voice, something I hadn't heard in months. I nodded and invited her in. We sat in the living room, the same room where I had fought to keep my independence, the room that had become both a battlefield and a sanctuary. She began quietly, almost choked up. I was wrong. I let my fear control me, and I didn't respect you. I thought I was helping, but I see now I was hurting you. I'm sorry, Dad. I'm so sorry." I could see the weight of guilt in her eyes. For a moment, I didn't speak. Then I took a deep breath. "Emily, I know you love me, but love isn't about control. Love is about respect. You've learned that the hard way, and so have I, in a way." Tears filled her eyes. "I promise, I'll never try to control you again. I didn't know how to let you live your life without worrying." I reached out and held her hand, a simple gesture that felt like a bridge across months of conflict. "I know, and I forgive you, but you need to understand something. Your father isn't helpless. I have lived my life, managed my own home, and I will continue to do so. You can love me and care for me, but not by taking my life away. For the first time in months, I felt a sense of peace settle in. Emily and I spent the next hours talking, not arguing, not strategizing, but really talking about our past, about her fears, about my independence. She listened. I listened. And slowly, the tension that had defined our relationship began to dissolve. A few weeks later, Emily visited less often, and when she did, it was with respect. She asked before helping, never assumed control, and let me make my own decisions. It was a relief. I felt like I had my life back, not just my home or my finances, but my dignity, my autonomy, my voice. The neighbors noticed the change too. They smiled when they saw Emily's visits were now calm, respectful, and warm. Friends commented on how proud they were of me for standing up, for not letting fear or manipulation take over my life. And I realized something vital. Sometimes standing up for yourself isn't just about fighting. It's about showing others that respect is non-negotiable. Months later, Emily came to me with a small gift, a photo album of our family, carefully arranged. "I made this for you," she said, tears in her eyes again, "to remember the good times and to remind myself what really matters." I opened it and smiled. The pages were filled with our memories, birthdays, holidays, vacations, silly moments, quiet afternoons. I hugged her tightly. "Thank you, Emily. That means more to me than anything. But remember, the best way to honor the past is by respecting the present." That night, I sat in my favorite chair, looking out the window at the sunset. I felt a calm I hadn't felt in months. The battle had been long, exhausting, and painful, but I had won, not through anger or revenge, but through standing firm, speaking my truth, and insisting on respect. I realized something fundamental. Life isn't just about survival. It's about dignity, autonomy, and love that doesn't suffocate. Emily had learned that lesson the hard way, and so had I. From that day on, our relationship changed. It wasn't perfect. No family ever is, but it was real. Respect replaced control. Love replaced fear. And I finally felt the freedom I had fought so hard to protect. And the moral of this story? Sometimes, the people who love you most can hurt you the most. But if you stand firm, speak your truth, and demand respect, justice and dignity will always find their way. And sometimes, karma has a quiet, patient way of restoring balance, even in the hardest of family battles. I look back on everything and thought, I didn't just survive this. I reclaimed my life. And that is the greatest victory anyone can ever have.